Entrepreneurship, Chapter 8. So in Chapter 8, we're talking about it. We've talked about Chapter 7, we talked about the customers. In Chapter 8, we're talking about experiments for customers, things we do to try to get customers. So one of the things you look at is you look at your market validation. Is there a market, a valid market for what it is you're trying to do? And when you want to know the answer to that, you experiment to answer questions. You're trying to get answers to your questions. These experiments going to guide you to kind of let you know what it is you need to do, how to go about doing it. And it begins with a hypothesis. What is a hypothesis? A hypothesis is an educated guess. So when we look at effort correlates to believability and Constable's truths curve. So when we look at the efforts correlates to believability, so you're talking about the amount of effort you're putting in to try to correlate to get something that's believable. And it's in other words, you're not going to try something once or twice. You're going to try it multiple times, and you're going to try to find ways to say, you know what, this is something that's believable because it's something I can duplicate. So it's not a one-time deal, and I've looked at things multiple ways. So we're looking at the types of interviews gain insight before experiments. So you want to interview people to find out who they are, what they think about a particular product or service that you're providing. And when you look at paper testing, that's a simple way to outline your vision and spot any mistakes before the process actually goes too far. And wireframing, when you think in terms of the wireframing, this is actually app type stuff, computers, stuff that might be based on a computer, your cell phones and stuff along those lines. It's going to be your wireframing. Advertise to assess levels of response. So how are you going to advertise? And when you do advertise, you want to determine the level of response. One of the ways you can do that is if you actually have a website, you could actually say, you could have a button, a nowhere button. That means people just go in and hit the button, but it goes nowhere. And it may tell them it's under construction or visit later. And the reason you would do that is to see how many people would actually go to that button. So it lets you know something. The more clicks means higher interest. If you get a button and you got a whole lot of people clicking it, well, that tells you there's a big interest right there. So that is something you may want to explore. Landing page with no call to action. This will be a situation where it says, okay, click here. That's a landing page. When you look at for more information. And when you think about task completion or usable testing, is also known as a sustainability testing. But I was watching somebody while they're using your product to try to understand, what they see, what they're doing. Prototyping your product. So you're looking at prototyping your products, rapid prototyping, pre-selling product before development. So prototyping your product is early and often, this is really kind of crude way of stuff. It's just getting something together. Do you say that, this is a prototype? Rapid prototyping is really crude. You slap something together really quick, and it's kind of rough around the edges. Not necessarily a good copy of what it is you're trying to do, but you need to get something together quick. And pre-selling is your product before it's developed. This is actually just, if you got something that that you could pre-sell to folks, basically they're buying it before it's developed and before it goes to market. Live product and business. So when you think in terms of live product and business, previous tests provided enough insight and validation to launch your product live in business. Tests have provided enough validation. Some experiments count as prototypes. So when you look at it, there'd be various things that you could consider to be prototypes. And you can find some that's simple and some that's more complicated. But the test provide enough. You'll need the test to provide the validation, plain and simple. So let's look at some of these prototypes. So range from basic to highly realistic. Communicates with ideas, what ideas look like. So when you look at the range from basic to highly realistic, you're looking at something that A prototype that could be something very simple, that you may draw something, to something that's almost like exactly lifelike. And what this does, it gives you an idea and people what it is, what will this thing look like? When you look at the low fidelity prototypes, you got the rapid prototype. Remember I told you that is something that's done really quick and kind of crude. The mock-up prototype is where you have something that's very similar. It almost looks like the finished product. You actually have a mock-up. And role playing is when you have individuals that can actually play with this thing, experiment with it, and you could actually do it, and to be the consumer, to see what it's like. So you're really role playing. What would it be like to walk in the shoes of the consumer? Low fidelity prototypes, user-driven prototypes. These are ones that users will come up with, something that they may come up with. Requires a user to create a prototype. Storyboard provides a high level view. So when you think in terms of the storyboard, this is something where you're bringing a lot of things together, and it tells you a big picture type deal. So this is why we call it a high level view, because you're looking at a high level and you're looking at all the ideas and prototypes and stuff that you bring aboard. The deep look at the prototypes. Medium fidelity prototypes, 3D printed prototypes, can represent a product as a visual aid. So these are really good. This is a lot of times you talk about something that can be it can be made out of some type of metal device or some type of material from 3D print. And it can be a product used as a visual aid, because a lot of times they are very realistic. I've seen things that were made from 3D and they can be very realistic. Now, sometimes it'll fool you to make you think it's the real thing. Your high fidelity, minimum viable product pilot experiment. So when you're looking at your high fidelity, this is a product that allows the team to collect maximum amount of validation about customers. Your pilot is it's going to be something that you would do on like a small scale. You take a small group of people to use them as a experiment group. That's your pilot experiment, and of course it will be pulled from a group that will be maybe your larger target market. And storyboarding, now see, storyboarding, the power of storyboarding, it compiles thoughts into one document. No hard rules. Goal is to communicate. So the deal is it compiles thoughts and ideas and stuff. It brings it all together on one document. No hard rules. This is something that's supposed to be user friendly, and the goal of it is to communicate to you and to others about a particular project. The power of storyboard: visually solve problems with pictures. Problem, solution, benefit frame, 4-quadrant. So when you look at the visually solve problems with pictures, a lot of people are visual, so they can see and they can actually follow this on the storyboard. So when you think in terms of the problem solving benefit framework, this is something that's going to be very useful because most people are visual. So it helps a great deal with that. And when we look at the 4-quadrant frame, it's taking 4 things into consideration: problem, solution, organizing, and outcome. So when we think about that, you're looking at your problem. What do we have? Solution to it. You organize and your performance for it, and then ultimately your outcome. The scientific method applied to entrepreneurship. Testing, not just about gathering data. So when you're testing a hypothesis. It's not just about gathering data. This is about testing the data, but also testing your hypothesis, what you believe to be the case, how things may work. Of course, you want to apply a scientific method to it, because when you do that, now you're applying things that's measurable, not just your gut, not just what you think or feel. You could actually have some data to show you that, one way or the other, what you have with this particular product. So when you look at the scientific method applied, you got 6 steps right here. So you want to identify a question. Identify what is needed. What do these people need? What do they want? Whatever else. Gather background information about. Well, what is it about these type of folks? What I need, the demographics. What is it? They tell me what is it I see. Form a hypothesis. Your guess. Your educated guess. Test your hypothesis. Find a way to say, okay, I believe this particular group of people will buy this, or they need this. Then you need to find a way to see if you can test that to see if that's true. The 6 steps of the scientific method. So you want to analyze the results to see, okay, now this is what the results I have. What are the results telling me? From that, you'll form your conclusion. When you form your conclusion, you say, okay, results, this is what I believe to be the case. And so realistically, what you're doing, you're acting to learn here. Let me see, what am I learning? What you can't have is a preconceived notion about something and not willing to grow from it and not willing to learn from what the data tells you and drawing your conclusion. It may be something different than what you thought. Redefining it into ideas into viable opportunities. Now, take that information and figure out now how can I make this something I can react to this information. How can I make this a viable opportunity to generate revenue? The experimentation template. This is what is a hypothesis? Again, it's an educated guess. It's what you want to find out about this. So you got to have a hypothesis for your product. There's a way to test it, and what is the pass-fail metric? How do you determine what's successful and what's not? Who are your participants? Very important. Give you an example. If you're doing your tests and everybody are college-age students, but your actual product is actually something that's going to be going to people aged 30 to 40, you got to consider that's not your right participants to have. When you determine the right participants to have, how many will you need? You got to have enough to give you to say, you know what, this is actually the results I see. I got enough to draw a conclusion from. The experiment template. How are you getting participants? How long will it be? So how are you getting participants? If your group is 30 to 40, just say your target audience is 30 to 40, how are you getting those people? Where are you finding them? How long will it take? How long will it be when you're actually getting these folks to participate in your experiments? I can tell you if it's too long, they won't do it or they'll quit. You got to find a happy medium in there, something that's actually doable. Low cost management, low cost customer engagement. Customer engagement is important, provides immediate feedback, makes connections with buyers. So when you think about it, when you're talking to someone and you're dealing with them face to face, that really doesn't cost you anything. But guess what? You're getting something right now, information from them right now, not tomorrow, not next week. And you're making connections with potential buyers. This is a great tool to use because it'd be great if you could get some folks lined up or potential targets before you actually produce something to sell. So again, that real-time data is what I said, simple and low cost. When you're trying to start an endeavor, you're as an entrepreneur, one of the things you want to do is keep the cost down. And this is one of the ways to do it. Feedback interviews. Feedback interviews are vitally important because you go into these and you're actually seeking to get more information on why people reacted a certain way. Use that prototype that you have and talk to them. And determine if there's value for the user. So what you're trying to ascertain from them is there's value for the user. Let them tell you. But also, if there's opportunity to watch them and observe, you can see some of those things too. Identify how to make the product better. The feedback can tell you. Listen, feedback is not only going to be positive for you, but it may be negative. But you need that. If they actually give you some negative feedback, now you know what to go work on too. What you want to learn in this feedback. Knowing what you want to learn, draft an introduction. And so, and this is for the interview. You want to know so the interview is going to help you. What you want to learn, draft an introduction for it. Ask them open-ended questions. For instance, do you think this is a good product? Let the person say, well, I know you think this is a good product. See, that's a yes, no. Do you think this is a good product and stuff? And tell me why. There you go. There's your open-ended question. Record the demographics. Again, understand who your market is so that you don't target the wrong individuals. The case of curiosity. When you find entrepreneurs, important strength for entrepreneurs are curious. They're curious about everything. That's one of the reasons why it makes many of them successful. By being curious, this is how sometimes they find entrepreneur type opportunities. These people have increased perseverance and performance. They don't back down at the first sign of something, or get dejected the first time something doesn't go right. They consistently persevere at it, and they always seem to try to find a way to perform. So when you think in terms of 5-dimensional model for curiosity, you're talking about deprivation sensitivity, joyous exploration, social curiosity, stress tolerance, and thrill seeking. These people will possess these 5 curiosities. How to stay curious. Connect with other curious people. If you want to be a high flyer and do good things, find other people who are high flyers and doing good things. Preferably other entrepreneurs or even positive people. Focus on the learning. Learn what it is. It's like a lot of times you have a job, we say learn your job, learn the skill. If you try an entrepreneur endeavor, learn as much as you can about that. The more you know about that, and you should be well versed, know more about that than anybody else. That is one of the ways that helps you sell or distribute the product. Ask a lot of questions. Ask questions to gain knowledge. Versus when you're talking to people, do a lot of listening. Ask a lot of questions and let them tell you stuff to get this important feedback. And broaden your networks. If you think you are going to target a particular group, then look at other groups that may be close to them and target them as well. Set up different networks and stuff and broaden your scope, because whoever you're trying to get information out there to, or you're trying to provide a service or product to, the more networks you have to do it, the better off you will be. It increases your chances for success. What you want to do is look at the evidence of what's happening for you and what you see. The results, the data, the interviews. Follow the evidence, not your intuition. Intuition is what you believe. The evidence is actually what's happening. Go with that. Unconscious bias is something that permeates a lot of folks. This is when you're actually doing things, but you're not consciously doing it. You're not aware that you may do it. And unconscious bias can cause you to say and do certain things that could be counterproductive to your business endeavor. Confirmation bias. Don't just look for the positive in your endeavor. Look for the facts. No matter what they may be. Remember, even if they're negative, that's a good thing because it helps you find ways to deal with that, address it, and overcome it. The reward of gathering your own evidence. Successful testing. Dropbox. So testing allows you to measure impact, of all different types of things. Take all the results into account. When you do that, you're not leaving anything out. And there was an experiment done by Brown Superstores, and in this situation, the stakeholders and they were tested, and they were allowed to give feedback about the experimentation that they went through, and it was very important. Gave them some good insight as to what it is that they were trying to do. Some of the things they needed to tweak, some of the things were fine. But this is how they actually did it, conducted it, sat down with the stakeholders and tested it to get their feedback. That concludes Chapter 8.